When examining social systems, organizations, there are three critical concepts we must consider. First, structure, the relationships amongst the components or their arrangements as parts of the whole. This helps us understand that the components are interdependent. Two is process, the change that takes place over time towards achieving a goal and the organizational outputs, its products, services, and information. Three is function, the transformation that the system brings about in inputs, raw materials, energy, data, or information, or capital, or to achieve the organization's goals. Or since systems are hierarchically embedded, the part that a component plays in the system to achieve its larger goal. So what are the components of an organization? Obviously people, but not necessarily unique individuals, but rather role occupants. A role performs specific tasks, functions, a prescribed set of expected, predictable behaviors. Computers and other information systems are also components of organizations. Subsystems that are composed of components themselves that perform functions, purchasing, manufacturing, sales, or public relations are also considered system components. Organizations must coordinate the behavior of these components to achieve its goals. Goal attainment is accomplished through communication, information that is exchanged amongst the components, individuals, subsystems, computers, or other systems in the environment, that reduces the uncertainty of the other components' behavior, which allows for the coordination of behavior to achieve the system's goals. Organizations, information, organizational messages perform three functions. They are: one, task related. They deal with the products, services, or other activities of the organization. Two, they are maintenance related. The messages that the organization disseminates to perpetuate itself by recruiting new members, socializing these new individuals into the organization's culture, and providing social emotional support for its members. Third, the messages may be innovation related. They enable the organization to adjust to a changing environment. Organizational messages also inform, that is, they provide task justification and information about procedures and practices. They regulate by providing feedback about performance through rewards and sanctions. And messages persuade. They give tasks directives. They also serve to integrate the members by coordinating their behavior and providing social and emotional support and career guidance. The repetitive exchange of messages amongst individual role occupants develops a set of predictable relationships that is known as the organization's communication structure, or what we label as its communication network. There are many factors that influence the scope and the nature of an organization's communication network, including role relations, the required sharing of information to complete tasks, the direction of the message flow. These may be downward from management to the workers, from supervisors to subordinates. They may be upward, from the subordinates to the supervisors, or messages that may flow horizontally among peers. The content of these messages are the messages task or maintenance related. 4 is the size of the series, the number of people the messages must go through to reach its intended audience. We know that the more steps messages take, the less accurate it becomes. This slide shows a simple communication network for a small organization with 3 departments: purchasing, manufacturing, and sales, along with the president and its managers. Notice from this diagram, we can tell that the president communicates with the department managers and that there is greater communication within the 3 task groups than with the individuals in other parts of the organization. Further, there are people who don't communicate with the other members of the organization, and a pair of individuals who only communicate with each other. As I said at the very beginning of this talk, systems, organizations are embedded in an environment. An environment is all that is external to the system, but impacts its activities. This is the totality of the physical and social factors that are taken into account in the decision-making behavior of the organizational members. Organizations must consider the following environmental sectors when making decisions: the values of society, the culture in which the organization is embedded. This is much more complicated than it sounds when we consider multinational and transnational organizations that are embedded in many different cultures. Organizations must consider political and legal factors. They must also keep track of economic conditions, such as interest rates and unemployment. Organizations must keep up to date on the advances in the informational and technical sector. What new innovations are occurring that would require it to adapt its products and processes? How are cutbacks in educational funding impacting the training of future employees? What about the physical or natural environment? Are the raw materials needed to manufacture the company's products in sufficient supply? How will global climate change impact our supply of raw materials and our market requirements? Another way to think about the environment is to divide it into the following categories. Consider the human aspects: the social structure, population, labor, and the culture of the environment. The technological aspects: the knowledge base, materials, and the tools needed or anticipated to be needed to achieve the organization's goals. Then there are the other organizations: the competition, politics, the government, and economic institutions. In organizational communication theory and research, we generally think in terms of environmental uncertainty. That is, the predictability of the environment's future behavior. The environment is constantly changing, and therefore, we are always uncertain about some aspects of the environment. In order to reduce our uncertainty, organizations should communicate with the environment. This is done through marketing and advertising research, lobbying, participating in trade groups, hiring people with special expertise, attending trade shows and conferences, and scanning the media, trade, economic, and the lay media to anticipate changes in the environment that will impact the functioning of the organization in an attempt to achieve its goals.